Okay, so I wanted to start out by looking at this map. This map was composed by a linguist, a Dee-ni linguist named Sharon Hargis, and she compiled all the work. And the point of this map, and hopefully, did you all get one? They were singles, probably not. Okay, Joe, you need, yeah, maybe. Oh, yeah. And there's some data on the back. We were trying to save paper, so we put two different things on one document. So if you take a look at this map, it's rather interesting because you have the white area, which is central Alaska, central Canada, out toward the plains of North America, of the United States. And you see the little white lines coming down the coast. And then it goes over to the southwest, which is like Western Apache and Lipan and Mescalero Apache. Those people, all those tribes in there, all speak our language, okay? Or some form of our language, some dialect. So I kind of wanted to start there. So the language family. So okay, so the language family name that we go by is Dee-ni today. Okay. So language family's name is Dee-ni, and it used to be Athabascan. So in the past, when linguists were talking about our language, they would talk about the Athabascan language, and now we call it the Dee-ni language. And the reason for that change is just like most of our names, they're not our own language. The word Athabascan is a word from another group of people talking about who we were. And so when they started documenting our language, they said, oh yeah, we call those people the Athabascans, and that's how we got stuck with the name. But Dee-ni, if you look at this map, you'll notice that a majority of all the languages have a D-E letter that's something to do with the name of their people. Like way at the top, Tanana Dana, or coming on down, you got, Danaza, you've got, for the Tututni, you got Tutut Dee-ni, and so on and so on. And so Dee-ni means people. It means like a citizen. It means to be a member of something. And so a few years ago at an Athabascan language conference in Bellingham, Washington, this has been brought up for, I guess, a couple of decades. And they go, you keep threatening to say, let's go to our own name for our language and abandon Athabascan. So finally, there at Bellingham, Washington at the conference, I think it was Bruce Starlight, he raised his hand and said, okay, I'm going to make a motion here at the conference that we shift our name, officially starting today, from Athabascan to Dee-ni. And somebody seconded it, discussion, and we voted on it and it changed. And from that point on, we've been knocking at the door of more like the intellectuals, like the linguists, the scholars and stuff. Update your knowledge about us. We're no longer in the future going to be called Athabascan. We're going to be called Dee-ni. Okay. And so taking a look at our word, okay, of that, the same version of that, this is where we get the word Dee-ni. See how related that is? Okay. And so there's some examples I wanted to share. So, so if you're on the Rogue River, there is a village site up there called Tututun. And it's called, there's a lodge here called Tututun Lodge. It's about 6 or 7 miles up from the mouth of the Rogue River on the right side, going up, left side. And so this is describing what that land looks like. So Tu is a meadow. That place that's a meadow, and Dun means at that place. So this means like if you said McKinleyville, if you said, it's the name of a place. So that's what Dun means. So to get to this Dee-ni part, you've got to do a couple little changes, okay? Now let's move down the coast a ways. So let's go down to, say, Chetco. So that word for Chetco is cheat, right? Or cheat-hu, done. And this here part's optional. Cheat done or cheat-hu done, either place. Either way is fine. So cheat. That's where the word Chetko comes from. It was borrowed from our language into English, right? So let's go a little further down. So let's go to Ta'atdun. So Ta'atdun is Crescent City. Notice they all have dun on them, okay? So Ta, outward, at that place. So what does Crescent City do? It sticks out in the ocean, right? It comes out like this. There's a big old bay, right? And there's Crescent City, right? Ta'atdun. It's describing the shape of the land. Okay, that's what that means. But now, if you move to the people from there, the people that are from that place, they were born there, they were raised there, they are citizens of that place. And so that's where the word Dee-ni comes in. So follow this with me. So, okay, so let's just take this done part and separate it out a little bit. Okay, so done, at, place, to be there, okay? Now you're going to add a piece of grammar, a piece of information that tells you that it's something that always belongs there. It's always possessed by it. It's always owned by that thing. And that the root for that is either going to be e or e. It can be either one. All right, so this means the word is a long, crazy word. It's inalienable possession. It means that it's constantly owned by something. An example is, in our language, if you take your body, like in English, it said, his finger hurts. But in our language, you have to possess the finger. It has to be la sake, because the finger has to always be a part of a body. It can't just be floating around the universe by itself. So that's what it means to be constantly possessed by the language. And our family members, so you say ta, guaka, shka, shkaka. That means that family members like mothers and fathers and cousins and sisters and grandparents are always owned by somebody. That's called inalienable, you can't take it away, possession. That's what that word means, inalienable possession. So this is the marker for that, okay? It also can look like this too. It also can look like this, ni or ne, all right? So these are inalienable. So that's supposed to be an A. Inalienable markers, okay, in the language. All right, so that's what these are. So now you take the idea, we're at a place, we're at Ta'atdun, Chawankwatdun, Cheatdun, Yanshu Cheatdun, all these villages at, right? And then you add the possessive marker et to it, and then you come up with a word like this. So, all right, so what's happening, you can see what's happened, that there's a new syllable break right here, da-ne. And in this case, we're using this form of it. And the language backfills it with a thing called phonology, right? And so da-ni becomes de-ni, okay? And that's where the word comes from, the ones from that place, all right? And that's how we ended up with the word Tolowa Dee-ni nation, because we are the citizens, the Tolowa citizens of our nation. And so therefore we came up with that very concept, Tolowa Dee-ni nation. That's how we got there, okay? All right, so now for up the coast of our language, which is the Rogue River language, which is identical to our language, they have a little different stress system, sound stress system, and their word is da-ni. Okay, da-ni, all right? Like the words Tututdani. So let's go back to Tututdan. Okay, so we're back at the village of Tututdan here. Tututdan, Tututdan, Tututdan. Okay, we're back here at the Rogue River village, Tututdan, and okay, so here's your dun, it's still there, and they just go like this. So it's Tututdani, and that's where the word Tututdani comes from, Tututdani. So it's the citizens of Tutu, that big nice meadow there along the shores of the Rogue River, Tututdani, all right? So that's what's going on there. So Chithu, well, Chithu dun, so Chit Dee-ni, right? Because we're down here toward the south, so Dee-ni. And Ta'at, Dee-ni, Crescent City citizen. So you got Tututni citizens, Chetko citizens, and Ta'atan citizens. So this is a history of how we got to Dee-ni, and it's just a part of our language, okay? So I just wanted to share that with you, and it shows how we are a member to a much larger language family, which is called Dene, okay? Bruce Starlight, who is from that Tsuut'ina nation right there, it says Tsuut'ina, okay? He's pretty proactive about our language, and he figures there's about 700,000 people today who are descendants of our language. When you add up all of Central Canada, the west coast of the United States, and then the southwest, he's thinking there's around 700,000. That's his guesstimate. So there's 700,000 Dene people. Now, unfortunately, they don't all speak our language. You know what I mean? They're not fluent speakers, but we all descend from the same language family. And so therefore, it's the largest language family in North America. Okay, because Navajo Nation alone has something like 300,000 members or something like that. It's a pretty big in itself. Just one nation of people down here in the southwest, the Navajo Nation, the Dene Nation. Yeah, they have like, they have a lot of.
This small little corner right here where we are, and that language that everybody else around us didn't have that.
Exactly. So now you're asking a great question. So before let me give you a little more discussion. So there's language families in North America, right? Okay. So you've got 8 language families in North America. Now, all right. So what's happened here? What's happened is not. I mean, what's the history of this is there's one called Algonquin, for example. Okay. So Algonquin. Correct. And then there's one called Siouan. How do you spell Sioux?
S-I-O-U.
S-I? Yeah. There you go. Yeah. Okay. Siouan. Okay. And so therefore the Sioux people, right? And then there's us. The Dene is one of them. Penutian is another one. Penutian. Hokan's one. Yuki is one of them. One, two. Oh, Uto Aztecan. Yeah. Uto Aztecan. So my point is on this is that each one of these languages has a completely different grammar. Like they're not related to each other in any way, shape, or form. Now, any language that evolved out of this one are related, right? Any language that evolves out of here is related. So can you guys tell me some Algonquian languages that you know of? So who are descendants of this language, the language today, the name of their tribe? Yep, the Yurok are one of them, correct? Which one? No, they are, I think they're Penutian. It might be Penutian. Yeah, see the Upper Klamath? Yeah, they're not Algonquian. And then we've got the Wiyot. Yeah, exactly. So if you look at this map of North America, I guess we don't have a pointer or something, but this whole, like around the lakes, and it comes down like this, that's the Algonquian homeland, So say all around and through here, scattered all down through in here is the Algonquian homeland, right? So you got Cherokee, Tuscarora, Oneida, those are all Algonquian speakers. And yet look at one little tribe is way out over here on the west coast all by itself.
Especially if you talk about their creation story, because their creation story is the end of the great voyage to existence.
Right. And so and I mentioned that a little bit in the future here. So that's for an example. Okay, now you take Siouan, that's going to be spoken out here on the plains, right, where the Sioux and Lakota people and the Dakota people are, okay? And Hokan, so Hokan are languages like, they're still saying Karuk still, and then Hopi, Pomo, okay? Dene, of course, as we can see them all up there. Penutian, we've got Wintu. You ever hear the Wintu people? You hear the Coos people. And then Yuki is unique. It's an isolate. So what is, so isolate,
Another Yukian language on the Great Lakes. But
really?
they can't
Prove it yet.
They think Proto-Yukian was, that's how they're
Connected.
connected. But there's two of them.
So isolate means, Japanese is an isolate. Basque in Spain is an isolate. What that means, there's no other place that's known in this whole earth that that language is spoken. So Yuki, down near Ukiah, California, the Yuki Indians spoke a language that was spoken by no other human race on this earth. So they're called isolates, and they're very rare, okay? How can it be that a group of people could live in Round Valley for the last 10,000 years and maintain a very specifically clear language? So as you look at the map of the West Coast, you've got a high number of blends of all these languages from all these language families, right? So just here in Northern California, to the east we have the Karuk, so they're Hokan, right? To the south, you've got the Yurok, they're Algonquian. To the north, you've got the Coos, and they're Penutian. And you go to the northeast, you've got the Umpqua, or the upper, the part of the Umpqua, and the Willamette Valley, which are the, where are the Indians of the Willamette Valley? Kalapuya. The Kalapuya tribes, they speak Penutian. So we're surrounded by four different languages geographically, okay? So the big question is, the very thing that linguists wrestle with is your question, is how the heck did this happen, you know? So what they do is they do a study and they come up with what's called a proto language. Okay, and what they do, how they get to, proto means like the previous edition of the language. You know, and so in Proto, if you go to all these Dene people and you ask keywords meaning like body parts, things like fire. Okay, so fire, dog, hand. I was going to write it in Dee-ni. Hand, water. Okay, basic elemental things of life. Guess what? So we say, like, for example, we say Juan. Another tribe says Con. Dog is like Li, and they might be like Li or something. Hand is La, it doesn't change. You know, water is either Tu or To, you know, or Tol, yeah. So that means that there was a language that all these descendant languages, the daughter languages, spoke at one time, meaning all these people were at the same fire. You know, meaning like they stood around the fire and went out and killed an animal, roasted that puppy and ate it, drank some water, made a basket, built a house, you know, had life, had ceremony, and they all spoke one language in that particular location. And then for some reason, it scattered across North America, okay? And so this is, again, how do we explain? We have an isolate of the Yurok Wiyot population like right between us, laying right there, that comes from over here, you know.
I want to share something Gola said at Humboldt one time, that Peme market, the word Peme,
Mm-hmm.
it's Algonquin, and it's a root of pemmican.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so
Like oil.
Here, but they do up in the plains.
So it's oil, right? Because it's dried
Berries and,
meat, right?
yeah.
Pounded together, and they make pemmican. I'll be darned.
There's a connection.
Right. See, there's your connection. See, and that's so linguists go around going crazy, think, "Gosh, how did this happen?" You know, like, you know, and because there's no written record from that period of time, it's all based on what you can study about the language, pick it apart, and it's called internal reconstruction, and go, "Wow, I see pieces here and here and here and here," you know, and they're connected, and that's how you know. Okay, and all human language has done this. It's not only North America. It's done it all over Asia. It's done it all over Europe. It's done it all over Africa. You know, all these thousands of, those are 7,000 human languages on the earth, something like 7,000 or 5,000 human languages, right? And they're not related at all. These grammars are not the same in any way, shape, or form. Their sounds are not the same in any way, shape, or form. Again, if they come from this stock, they're the same or similar, and so on and so on. But otherwise, they're not related. So, very good question. And it's something that linguists spend a lot of time thinking about. And human languages are very conservative. So prior to, advanced civilization, not advanced civilization, the advancement of technology, and life started changing really fast, because we come up with something new every day, right? New food, new technology, new something every day. But for the last 100,000 years or further back, humans lived pretty much the same. They drank water, they hunted and they fished, they cleaned things, they made things, they built homes, and they told stories, they had ceremonies. And they lived like that for hundreds of thousands of years. So the language is not forced to change, right? Because what's the point? If you say la, you say la. Why change it to cat? It doesn't make sense, right? So when they try to put a time frame to that evolution of languages. So if you compare Tolowa Dee-ni and Hoopa Dee-ning language, you can see they're related. They have identical grammars, but their surface languages is a little different. Okay? When we go to Hoopa and they talk Hoopa, we can't understand them because there's too much difference. Same as here. Now, if I went to Siletz and they talked the language, I understand them, right? Because we're the same language, right? Historically, so on. But so it's called the Sapir hypothesis. They try to give so much change between, say, the Hoopa and the Yurok years. And they come up with this idea that our language has been separated for 3,000 years. But it's not based on anything factual. It's not really based on anything like a record that says, by golly, 3,000 years ago we talked like this, and then today we talk like this. Because there's nothing like that available. So in grad school, one of the questions they always ask we freshmen, so what is the oldest language in the world? Does anybody have a clue? What do you think is the oldest language on Earth? Huh? Okay, I like that choice. Okay, so we got Latin as a choice. Good. Okay, any other? We got Karuk as a possible oldest language in the world. Okay. Okay, so Hopi. I don't know how to spell it. Hopi Anasazi. Any other guesses? What's the oldest language in the world that you think of?
Sumerian.
Oh, Sumerian. Oh, that's good. I don't know how you spell that either. Something like that. Sumerian. Okay.
Proto something, I can't think of the second word.
Something proto. Okay. How come no one has said Chinese yet? Okay, or something, or Korean, or something like that. And so, and when I was in that one grad class, the one that most students picked was Hebrew. It was really interesting. They said that, and so then the professor goes, okay, so tell me why you think Hebrew, for example, is the oldest language. And they go, because the Bible is written in it. And the Bible talks about Genesis, and it tells how the world was made, so their language has to be the oldest, and he just listens and everything. But by the end of the course, you realize that we don't know the oldest world language spoken today. It may have emerged from the dust of humanity, was spoken for 100 or 300 or 400,000 years, evolved off into another language, and disappeared. So we have no clue the oldest language, but we do know that all language is very old, because we humans have been talking for millennia upon millennia. We're the only species, as we think, that we know of, that speak language on the whole planet. We don't believe anybody else does. We don't believe that elephants do, or porpoises, or cats, or crickets.
Language or communication.
Exactly. So that's a good differentiation. So I asked that question too, similar. I said, wait a minute. So how come there's some studies that were done. So there's this thing called this animal called the green monkey in Africa. And so they're all, picking up nuts and talking to each other and slapping each other around, having a good time. But the guard monkey, when he leaves a certain type of a squeak, they all run up the tree. And then they're observing this, and what it was is the snake was coming, and he'd eat one of them. So they knew to run up. And then they're up in the tree horsing around again, and they get another squawk, and they all run down the tree because there was this huge hawk that hunts them. Oh, so they have vocabulary like, okay, snake, hawk, man, whatever, you know what I mean? So they knew what to do. But the question is the difference between human speech, because we know that whales communicate now through those sounds they make, that they actually communicate, right? Dolphins do that, right? And now we know trees even communicate through the, what's the name of that system that they live under? They support each other, they send each other nutrients, they help each other. So it's a form of a language because they're communicating. But the difference, how they cut humans and animals of the world apart from each other is that there's also somebody mentioned elephants live quite a long time. Like, I forget how, they have a long lifespan. And so there's been these periods in African history out in the plains where the earth dries up. And finally, one of the old grandma elephants will say to her herd, we're going to walk. And she takes them across like this long walk, and she takes them across this range of mountains, and they finally drop down another place, and she takes them to water, and they survive. But they haven't been to that valley for the last 4 generations. So how did that grandma elephant know to take her family over that ridge down that treacherous path, because they could have fallen down the mountain and broke their legs at any time or whatever? How did she know that? So is there storytelling? So the difference of a monkey squeaking to run up and down, or a dog barking and danger's coming or whatever, and to warn us, the difference is, do they sit around and do what we're doing right now, intellectualize and live in the non-present? Because right now we're living back 4,000 years ago. We're living in the future. We're all over the place. But do animals do that? So did the elephant sit down at council one night and go, daughter, if the day comes that there's a drought and there's no water, take your family across the mountain ridge, So that we don't know because we don't speak elephant. And we don't know that because we don't speak whale. We don't speak dolphin. We don't speak ant. And because we don't speak it, does it mean that they're not communicating? You know what I mean? But as far right now, we believe the theoreticians of life believe that only humans have human language. That's up for discussion, and I'm not going to ban the flag one way or the other. It's like, who knows? And we don't know. So on. So, but we don't understand them. So whatever. So anyway, that's kind of I really wanted to start here because I don't think our own Tolowa people, our own Tututni Chetco people realize how big our language family is. It's huge. And that we share a lot more resource out there with each other than we know, that we understand, and so on. So that's kind of why I wanted to start here and share that. Any other questions on this?
There was a guy in the radio interview the other day in Brookings, and he said that the Chetcos have absolutely nothing to do with the Tolowas except to speak a similar language.
Oh, except for.
Except a small little thing like that. And it just went on for about a half an hour. And what was the purpose of the interview? I guess it was that statue, that monument.
That's
the
politics
of
right. They're trying to separate the Chetcos and the Tolowas.
Yeah.
That California line wasn't there until 1850. That's brand new. We've been here over 10,000 years or plus, or however long we've been here. So, and according to us, we've been here since Genesis. So, we've been here since the world was made. So yeah.
The interview was almost like it was an accidental or incidental linkage with the Tolowa.
An incident,
Just use that word.
Yeah, but it's kind of what it's like. Yeah, and the sad part is, with misinformation like that, is Tolowa and Chetco are literally identical. You cannot even find half a word that's different between the people who spoke Chetco on the Chetco in the past and the people who spoke Tolowa on the Smith River. Those two languages are simply identical. There's not an iota of difference. Now you go past Whale's Head and you get up to the Pistol River and the Rogue River, there's the shift, but it's still mutually intelligible. Those people totally understood each other. There was no break in understanding what they were talking about. Anyway, okay, so, all right. If you look at here, my little page 3, on yours it's going to be page 2 because I have a different one. I'll grab one that you all have. Okay, so the prehistoric Pacific Coast Dene languages. Okay, and this map was drawn by Victor Gola. I'm not sure the year. It's pretty early, probably back in the 70s. But you can see how he's got up here in the top orange circle area, he's got Chetco and and Tolowa, Tututni, Dako, Be, Dene, and all that. And down below he's got the Hupa, Nangat, and all that. And so the idea is so these are the two languages I've been talking about, our language and say the Hoopa language, or the Hoopa, Redwood Creek, Eel River language. So just like how Rogue River, Smith River, Chetco River, Pistol River, Applegate River were so one language, the same is true down south of here. The Eel River, the Redwood Creek, Upper Trinity River, and all that all spoke a language that they all understood from each other. They had some differences, like little saying things, way to say something, just like in English, mayonnaise, potato, tomato, tomato, that, but we still know it's a tomato, right? You slice it and you eat it or whatever, right? It's not like a new word like apple, it's the same word. And so 1.1 says the Algonquian arrival, which Guy Lish mentioned. So Lucy Thompson, she has a book that she authored in 1916, described the arrival of the Algonquian language to the west coast along the Klamath River and eventually out to Humboldt Bay. The division of the making the division of the California Pacific Coast languages. So probably before the Yurok got here, possibly, we were still connected geographically. And then once this new language came in here, you got Karuk, see where the Karuk is, you got Yurok and Wiyot. You see how the languages are separated now. And so now you've got a whole different language family, between the two, and that's why Tolowa, Chetco, Tututni evolved this way, and Hoopa and all the other languages, Wailaki and the like, evolved another way. You see what I'm saying? And that's probably, now this is a positive theory, but Lucy talks about when they traveled following the head people are called Toth, and they had a staff. And they would put the staff on the ground and they would pray, and then they would receive ways to live, and they kept moving. It's a very specific story she shares on how they moved. And it kind of fits the idea that, so either they started here and went there, or they started here and went here. Or, something. There's a connection between Cherokee and Yurok. That's, so, and so on. All right. So flipping on by here. So it says now the Oregon Pacific Coast Dene languages. Okay, that's who we are. Okay, we are the Oregon because the majority of our language is in what state? Oregon, geographically, right? Look at if you look at that map, you can see where the California-Oregon line is. 2/3 of our Aboriginal land is in Oregon. 1/3 is down here, or 1/3 is, or maybe it's like 4/5 or whatever it is in Oregon, and 1/5 is down here in California. So you can see that. So Henry Sanderson made this map for us, and so you can see like where and these here units that you're looking at on this map. The reason why I put different colors on them is these were governance districts. They're called Yatli. And so if you're from the blue one, the Ta'at Yatli, your dialect would be a certain way. If you're from up here, the central one, this one that's kind of a mustardy brown color, I can't see it on here. Chetco, no, must be Rogue River. No, Rogue River's further up. Then you would speak a dialect of that language, completely understandable though. Like even right here when I was a kid growing up, they would talk about a plate that you eat on, the open weaving tray that you can train acorns for, clean huckleberries. Well, one family calls it gasi, another family calls it gase, and another one calls it gasai, but it all means the same thing. And they all, so those are the kind of differences that was going on between these Yatli. And then they could tell as soon as you talked where you were from, just by how you spoke. Immediately they'd know where you were from. Oh, you're a so-and-so area people. It didn't make you enemies. Didn't make you friends. It just meant that that's where you were from. And again, all this language was one language that's mutually intelligible. That's kind of my point of sharing this map. So it says here, so Tolowa, Chetco, Tututni, Galice Creek, Applegate River, Upland to Kelma, Umpqua, and Siletz Dee-ni. So the Oregon Pacific Coast languages formed a mutually intelligible speech community, okay, at that time. Moving to the next one. Now this is the California one, which is south of the Yurok and the Wiyot and the Karuk. So you can see there the languages are the Hoopa, Cholula, Wilkut, Matol, Kato, Bear River, the famous Bear River Casino, Wailaki, Sinkioni, Nongat, and Lasik. Okay, so those people all spoke a mutually intelligible language, and the people who still are speakers can still understand each other. Okay? All right. So moving on from there, I wanted to share this story next. This is a segment and pieces out of our Genesis story. Okay, this is how the world came into existence. And the purpose of sharing this today was in the last paragraph, actually, because the Genesis story, account of Genesis, tells us that our people are going to spread across the land. And it actually says that. So the first part of it, in the beginning there was darkness. 3 of them living aloft in the sweat house of knowledge. Baby Cinder, Daylight, and Thunder came into consciousness and began a conversation. Daylight agrees to slide the door open and fill the void with light, which is then the Big Bang, right? So there you go. And then the next one, golden berries pelted the earth and filled the water with earth. So the earth was being hit by these Deitsu, and it kept falling on the earth until it filled it with water. Okay, that's part of our Genesis account. Then dry land is pulled up from the depths of the sea, making Yontaket, the center of our world. Okay, so out of this depth of the sea, land was pulled up, and it finally emerged above the water. And then they were looking Yont to the south, Takat upon that knoll. And that's why they named it Yontaket, the center of our world. Okay, so that's going on. And then, again, these are excerpts. So the next one, the white redwood and ash tree and the footprints arose out of the sea on the new land. So as this new land was pushing out of the ocean permanently, it says, Du cha shri na gatkasle. Never again shall the ocean wash over the top of this. And that's one of the prayers for Nadash. Hey, that's what that's talking about. That's that prayer. Okay, that goes with Nadash. Okay, and so on. And then the salmon are released. So there's this again is skipping, but salmon are released in the streams, and the earth was teemed with life. So the first fish that came into existence had no skin. They didn't. So the Creator says, "My nephew is not going to want to eat that." So he takes his hand and he washes it in the water, and then he goes, "He tutlaste ye tai trushla." Now I hope that it has skin. And then new fish came to the surface that had skin, and they take off and go to all the rivers. So that's how we have salmon and steelhead and all that stuff. And then it's time to make the humans. Now, in this account, we are the last to emerge on the scene. We're the last to arrive in this whole thing. These stories always start with, in the beginning, everybody spoke the same language. So we could talk to the deer, we could talk to coyote, we could talk to crane, we could talk to all these people. We were a people with all the rest of the people, but we were the last ones to come out of the dust or something. So they finally create, then there's this mass extinction that occurs, and they find that the energy of life is being stored in the earth's belly, which is the ocean. And then he takes Daylight's milk and he pours it in the ocean, and that's when the new generation comes, which is so biological, because without the sun and the ocean, there would be no life. So pretty scientific story here, really. And then they finally succeed, because first man was made and he was deceased. He was a male. And then that's when they came down, and then finally they succeeded in making the first human, and she was a female. So our first human was a woman. And then that skips down to the last paragraph, one of the last paragraphs. Genesis foretells the dispersal of Dine and the transformation of the languages. So it says, so Di not ne sanj Kwastani Chata Shrihe Nui Nilti. They had 16 children. Tane Danten. Some of them will live in the north. Tane Yonten. Some will live in the south. And your children will begin to speak new languages, different languages. They shall become different types of humans. And then it says, and you two are going to be their ancestors of all those people. So that's kind of explains in a way maybe what happened in our, in our version of reality anyway, And I'm sure if you went and talked to a person up there, they might have a similar story, but going the other way, you know what I mean, or something, But the thing that's interesting, so this part of the world during the Ice Age was frozen, right? over this body of water, the Great Lakes, the ice sheet was 2 miles thick. Could you imagine an ice sheet 2 miles thick coming across the top of North America? Do you think there are very many humans up there? Probably not a whole bunch, if there were any. Were there very much elk? Were there any moose? Were there any coyotes? Probably not a whole bunch, because what would you eat on a sheet of ice that was 2 miles thick? So human life had to cling on to life down in this part of North America. So that's kind of something to consider as well. And so that's kind of, I wanted to share that. All right. So now these are old stories. 3.0, the Southern Pacific Coast Dene language movements from Yontaket. And this is stories that were told by our ancestors. And this story was also collected in 1903. Yeah.
Just the reason, too, we have such plant diversity here in Humboldt and Belmar County and Mendocino County is because this is the only place that wasn't completely destroyed by the Ice Age. So it totally makes sense, because that's why plants are here, and they fled to this region of Earth, and then afterwards they repopulated.
Redispersed.
Yeah, so it makes sense if people did the same thing.
Yeah. We follow the patterns of nature. It really kind of makes a lot of sense. So it says here, Huestai, Nagasli, they became the Hupa. And this story, in short, is that one day they're at the center of the world at Yontaket, and 50 young people said, let's go out and pick berries. And then one of them suggests, hey, well, let's have a dance. So they start dancing, and as they danced, they became entranced. They went they became under the spirit. They were entranced. Anyway, they keep on dancing, and they keep moving south, and as they go through the brush and stuff, their bark skirts are all stripped off. And anyway, so there's a piece here where one of the headman's daughters, she went off on her own in a different direction. And then finally the others came out at Hupa, and then they came back to their senses. They were woken up, and then they decided to live in that valley. And the thing that's really sweet about this story is that the Hupa creation story, if you ask the elders, what is your creation story? They go, well, if you're in Hupa Valley looking north, there's a thing called Bald Hill. It's this big hill. And it says that the way the fog formed on the mountain that day, they knew the humans were coming. So the Kehanai, or the Kehenai, who lived, the spirit beings that lived in that valley, said, oh, the humans are coming. And so they prepared the land for the humans, and some transformed into acorn trees, some into certain boulders, and some into certain riffles and so forth, and they formed this land, and then the humans appeared from the fog and entered the valley, and go, this is a perfect lineup. This story and that story matched 100%, And then they moved into that valley, and then the Kehenai, or the Kehanai, gave them instructions on how to live there. They said, this is where you build your villages. That's where you build your fish dam. That's where you get acorns. That's where you do this, this, and this. And that's how they got their laws on how to live there in that valley. Okay? So there's that story. And then we have another one. So then the next piece I wanted to share with you today, I'm trying to move through this. I'm slow. Is then we have the historic changes too. So historic meaning once the arrival of man who writes. Okay, so who were the first visitors to come visit our shores by boat? Who were they? Who came first? Yeah, I think, who said Spain? Yep, Spain was probably the first one. Okay, and they got to the west coast in 1540s, yeah, somewhere around there, and they set up the town called San Diego, California. Okay, about that period. Then who was next? Probably, I think, so they're 18, well, they set up Fort Ross in 1820? Is that right? And then the English came, right? And then, well, here they arrived in what? When did Jedediah Smith come through here? 1828. Okay. So then he comes walking across the land, claiming this land for the United States. Well, anyway, so this story is real short. So it says, go ships arrive at Yontaket. Yontaket done. So then the Yontaket people, in fear, flee away to Hupa because they know they got relatives living in Hupa. They just split and leave. Okay, so this, we don't know, it happened somewhere between here to here. that these people took off and left. And they never came back. They just stayed in Hoopa and became Hoopa people. So there are some historic movements, meaning after the 15th century, where our people were moving then as well. So now there's another example of Dalahan where language moved.
Is the ghost ship E the color of the mast?
Yeah, they said that those big white masts, they thought it was Nahuatl, they thought it was ghosts, like spirits. These big ships all of a sudden they'd never seen before. Could you imagine that would be like a spaceship landing right here? Like, we'd be flipping out, right? Well, they were flipping out because this boat was coming along the shore. And they probably, at Trinidad, they shot cannonballs into the Indian village at the Yurok village of Churai in 1740 or something like that. Pulled in there and shot some cannons off into the village just for the heck of it. Anyway. So that's another way and why language might have moved, and they knew they had relatives there. So they felt safe and they were far off into the interior, right, away from the coast. And so I want to share this with you real quick. So Tolowa Dee-ni borrowed 2 words from the Spaniards. Okay, so the story goes like this. So these Spaniards come ashore at Lake Earl, and they pull in. And of course, you can't bring your ship to shore, right, because it's too big. So they come up in a boat. This is my boat, and they build a fire. And these Indians, our Indians, were in the brush, going, "What in the heck's going on here?" They're watching these people, and so they're listening and watching. And who in the heck are these people coming to our shore, right? And so they had these things, shaped like this. And they built that fire, and they got hot, and then they opened it up, and they put that thing in the hot sand, and then they pulled it out, and it was soft, and they peeled it and ate it. And they heard them say, "Camote, camote." And we never saw those before. First time I ever saw those, camote. Because the Spaniards got these from the Indians from Mexico, right? Which is a yam or a potato type thing. And then we turned it into chamute. So we borrowed camote and turned it into chamute, which means potatoes in our language now. Okay? And then the other thing that they saw was they brought this animal probably off the ship onto shore, and they heard them call it mula. And so it's a jackass or a mule or whatever.
Was Spretling qualified?
Well, you know what, though? In Spanish, I had that on there, but I did my homework, and Spunt-you, they say, for Spaniard, they don't say Spunt-you. They say, I took it off. Shoot, I should have left it on there. It's, if they say Spanish in Spanish, it's not Spaniard. It's, I took it off there. I should have left it on there. It's a different word. So I think we heard other people call them Spaniards. Español. They call themselves Español. They're not Spaniard. They're Español. And so that kind of shot that one in the head. I thought we had 3. Anyway, so we got mula, which means in our language, jackass or a mule. We brought it straight from Spanish. It just goes from mula to mula. That's it. So we borrowed 2 words. When that happens, that is called phonologically shifting, okay? And there's plenty of those words in our language. Like we have the word for coffee. What is the word for coffee? So English is coffee. And in Dee-ni, it's kape. And why would that be? Well, because we don't have a f sound in our language. And so the closest sound is f, b. We have a k, ka, and then we got a be. So we got kape out of coffee, okay? And that's called phonologically shifting. You're borrowing it. Just like they borrowed chithu and made it to chetko. They borrowed hayu chit and made it hayuchi, see? So, and they borrowed enmai and turned it to Mount Emily, okay? That's our language as well. 3 words made it into to English. Chithu, chetko, hayuchi, and enmai. And Tatutin Lodge. That came from our language, So, moving on. All right. So now, on page 12, you can see there it says the Oregon Pacific Coast in a homeland. Okay, so it's the same map, everybody, but I showed you the yellow, the orange, and the purple area. These are the 3 main dialects of our language. So if you were from any of the villages in the yellow area, you spoke the Dee-ni language. If you're anywhere from the purple area, or the Dee-ni language, Dee-ni language, and then if you're at the orange, you're from the Dee-na language. But they all can understand each other. These are all mutually intelligible languages. But they actually have some differences between them, okay? But some of them are just really close, and some are a little further apart. And there's a really great project being studied right now at University of Oregon, where they're examining all of that. But anyway, and the only language to remain spoken to this day is the purple, right? The yellow died off. It's being restated now, and the orange is gone. No one speaks that language anymore. No, this is the only Oregon side. If you go back up onto page 3, but if you go back to page 3, you'll see the California ones. Okay, I mean, yeah, the ones, and so that's why we're called the Oregon Pacific Coast Dene, because see how much of our land is in Oregon. I mean, of our Aboriginal land and coastal, right? So that's what those areas are showing us. Okay, now if you can endure me, and if you have questions along the way, please stop me and ask me. So these next pages are just lists showing you the difference between Tolowa Dee-ni and Tutut Dee-ni, okay? Just to show you. So for example, look at that. Me or I, she, no, do, blood, dush, tooth, woo, woo, hunt, so on. See, those are identical. There's no difference, right? Then you have other things that's called here. So you've got, so we say tatkhat and they say tolkhat for water. Yultsit, they say yultsit. See? And then yatshri, they say yulshri. See how close that is? But yet it's a little different, okay? Going down the next one, so you got D, meaning this, and they say chi or say chi. They're very similar in shape and sound. The next one, man, justne, disne, or dusne. See, again, and when people were fluent speakers, they could understand that really easy.
But when we were in Eugene with the files and they were talking, like, even all their domains they have listed all over their house, like, we could totally understand everything they were saying, and they could understand everything we were saying. They were speaking different, you know?
Yeah.
Sounds a little bit different.
And then like here, like one thing that they don't do up there is they don't use the N sound anymore. Or I don't know, I say they lost it, maybe we gained it. But okay, for example, we say slan for many and they say sla. And then we say dog, we say sli, they say sli. See, there's no N there. It goes from sli to sli. Very similar though. And then you got cold weather, hum skates, and they go huskas. And there's another page of this too, so endure with me. So if you turn the page to woman, we say tronche. See the N sound in there? And they just say drache. They lost the N. Well, they evolved with, I'm not saying it's wrong, but it's just they evolved in another direction. And then, okay, then person is Dee-ni, Dee-ni, nage, chageshe, tomorrow, anta, ahwan. It's funny because hashmet ahwan for us means tomorrow, and then so does hash. Oh wait a minute, anta. Hashmet ahwan. I got two different words there. I'm sorry. Creek, draginli, and shhoot for creek. See, they're just different words. But I'll show you something. I got so excited when I heard this word. Kyle was there. Okay, so you guys know where Shahut Hot Park is, that the tribe owns, right? Shahut, or I think we spell it like this, right? Shahut Hot, right? And then we also have Shahut Met, and we also have Shahut Chu. Okay, so I'm like going, okay, so here is Rowdy Creek, here is Mill Creek, and here's Damnation Creek. Shahut Hot, Shahut Met, and Shahut Chu. And we've been trying to pick apart, what does this Shahut part mean? Like Shah, well, if it was Cha, it means a fork, like to branch off, but it's Shah. And then we get this word from Siletz out of their resources, and it's Shahut. And I'm jumping with joy. Wow. This is their word for creek. And so we have that word in our language, but we use it differently. You see what I'm saying? Because if you take and go like this, right? So that's that part. And you go here, and there's your ho. That's that part. And then we just added things like, so hot means spread out, met means inside of it, and chu means it's big. So we've taken these and added grammar to them. But see, so really, so hoot just means crick. But we've put it into a different use down here and lost, because we now say crick what? Treginli, right? Flowing down the mountain. Treginli. Going down the hill, going down the mountain. Treginli, see? And they may have Treginli too, as well. Who knows? Yeah, so now it was like, I was so excited, I was going, score! We found it, what it means, because it just means it's another way to say crick. Anyway. Linguists get excited about the craziest things. Well, anyway, welcome to my world. So then there's like consonant variations. So like the rear end, like the end of a chair, a car or a boat or your own rear end, is we say ta and they say tla. So ta tla ta tla. Down here we say itchy, we say hingis, and they say gingis. Pretty darn similar, So that goes to show you how close and similar Siletz language, Rogue River language, Chetco, and Smith River languages are. And also, don't forget, where's the Illinois River? When you go on Highway 199, that's our land too. Okay, any questions or curiosities? Or I'm kind of flying along here, I realize, but if you have any questions or whatever, let me know. Okay, good. So then I wanted to share some, because I'm doing history right now, so I wanted to share on 8.0 the military displacements. Now think about this now for a minute. Okay, so where's Siletz, Oregon? It's way up there, right? 5 hours drive. You have to go up the coast, turn off at Newport, go inland, and you finally get to Siletz, right? Well, so our languages started out here. So this here is Rogue River, Flourish Creek, Langlois, comes down here to Wilson Creek, California. It includes Applegate River on 199, right? Then all of a sudden now, you got people speaking our language up at Siletz. Well, how did that happen? And well, so during the military period, after in 1856, when the Chetco Rogue River Indian War ended, they'd said any Indian living north of the new California line has to leave, okay? And they shipped them out, okay? And they picked them all up and they moved them, okay? And they, like for example, like Amelia Van Pelt even was taken up there for a while, but her husband went and got her and brought her back to Brookings, because that's where she was from, and so on. And all these people were taken up there. 1,800 people were taken to Siletz. And they were put into a valley called the Siletz Valley. And that language from there is called Silatsi. It's their own language. And it was a Penutian language, I believe, that was spoken there in that valley. And they were called the Salmon Indians that lived in that valley. But I guess the poor salmon population, the salmon population had dropped really bad. And there was just like a scant few number of them, if any, could be even found. So the government liked the Siletz Valley because they could put a tower on the south end and the north end, and anybody trying to escape would get shot. So they decided to make Siletz Valley a holding tank then for all of our people. And so they dumped us in there. There was 1,800 of us. And then they dumped all these other people, Alsea, Tillamook, Kalapuya. They dumped 13 other total tribes are all dumped in that little valley, all made to live together. Yeah, probably Umpqua went in there. Yeah, all those kind of the western coast Indian people all got shoved in there. And they brought people from above toward Washington, downward from the Columbia River as well, and shoved them into Siletz. And they were forced to live in this new land called the Siletz Valley. And that's how our language got to Siletz. It didn't come from there originally, but it was taken there with 1,800 people. And they were the biggest population taken to the reservation. So they set up their own private council. It was called the Chetco Indian Council. And they had a Siletz reservation council, but then they had a separate council to handle their own affairs because they considered themselves different, right? It was like, well, they were. And when you read Colquill Thompson's memoirs, it's called Athabascan Witness. there was murders going on. These people were like, some of them were cardinal enemies, and they were forced to live all of a sudden next door to each other, and so there was hassles and all kinds of problems. They didn't dance for the first 3 years. There was no ceremonies. It was just utter chaos. People were starving to death. People were getting diseases and dying in large numbers. It was a horrible time. So that's what this is about. So the California Oregon Dene Te Na Nehliachu Holocaust began in California in 1851 and ended in Oregon in 1856. It says the Oregon Pacific Coast numbered around 10,000 Dene people at the beginning of this, 10,000. The Euro-American clashes with Northern California and Southwestern Oregon began with the arrival of the Americans following the gold rush of 1849 and 1851 gold strike on the Rogue River in Oregon Territory. The first California legislature passed the Indian Act in 1850 for indentured slavery. So in California, you could sell Indian children into slavery if their parents were dead. And how did you know their parents was dead? Because you killed them. It's pretty simple. So in January of 1851, Governor Peter Burnett declared genocide of the Californians. A war of extermination will continue to be waged between the two races until the Indian race becomes extinct. And they appropriated $1.6 million in 1851 dollars to get that done. 1851, 1852 dollars. So if somebody knows economics, they could calculate 1.6 million, what that would mean in today's money. I don't know how many millions that would be. It might even be billions. I don't know. If that would, the equivalency. I'm not sure. So then the Coast Reservation and the Klamath Reservation on the Klamath River were established by executive order in 1855. By 1856, 80% of the Oregon population were gone. So we went from 10,000 people to 2,000 people in just 4 years. It's pretty amazing impact on our language and our people. And then the Holocaust ended in Oregon in 1856. And I already said that they had to go. Oh, they were moved to Salish country in Siletz Valley. So it was Silishan language, okay, not Penutian. The Dene population comprised the largest at Siletz, as I said, and they formed a separate Chetco council. Now, on the California side, the Dene were driven to Round Valley Reservation in Yuki territory. Now, remember, the Yuki language was an isolate. No other people spoke that language on the whole earth. And now you've got a bunch of new Indians. I think there's, 9 tribes at Round Valley, Ruby? Or 11? Nine tribes were dumped in that valley on top of what was the Yuki homeland. They were a unique race of people all to themselves. And now all of a sudden they got all these other tribes dump on them. I just want to put the southern history here as well, because that was going on to the south. We got shipped north, they got shipped south, like the Hoopa, Red Creek, and different ones of them. So the failure of the Klamath Reservation on the Klamath River spurred the creation of the Smith Reservation in 1862. The last of the Eel River Dene warriors and Wiyot citizens were driven to Smith River. The Treaty of 1864 established the Hoopa Valley Reservation and was eventually confirmed by executive order in 1876. 1868, Congress annuls our reservation. We had a beautiful reservation. It went from the California line, came clear to those mountains back there, a lot with the redwoods on it, and halfway to Lake Earl. So if you leave northern Crescent City, all the way Oregon border was our reservation. It was a really nice reservation. But they decided they wanted it, so Congress goes, it's done away with. 1868, May 3rd. The Wailaki warriors instead were, so the internees, which included us, were organized for removal to the Hoopa Valley Reservation, a brand new reservation. And so the Wailaki warriors instead were executed. And Daishri Sam Lopez said that his grandpa, who was alive at the time, said it was really sad. He said because we got to live down on the island in the mouth of the Smith River, the Tolowa, because we had signed a treaty. But on the main reservation, up by the headquarters, it was the Wiyot and the Wailaki people. So he said that they told them people, well, you get to go home today, because they want to go back to their lands, right? So they packed up their belongings and filled their pack baskets up, and they're getting ready to take off and go. And they got around those Wailaki warriors, and they gunned them down. And they just dug a big old trench grave and dumped them in there. And they're buried down there to this day, down there on that road, there by that road there. And he said the people just were sickened. Everybody was, ill and sad, and there was just mayhem, to just have all those people executed that day. But the residual got moved to Hoopa, which included us. And so Daishri Ed Lopez said that they got them finally organized on that new reservation that they did away with, took us up Rowdy Creek, and took us way up to High Divide, and then they went along the ridges and went on Rattlesnake Ridge. They went behind Red Mountain, and they went on to Witch Peak on those ridges, dropped down on the Trinity, and went to Camp Gaston and Hoopa. So, and then our population was taken to Hoopa. So how many times have we gone to Hoopa now? Today, 3 times, you know, right? You know, so it's amazing. We got this huge connection to Hoopa, you know. And so then they were forced to live there until 1902 legally. That didn't mean people didn't run away, though. People continually ran away. And Sam said that the men figured out if they went in small numbers, like 7 guys, and took off, you know, they usually would just round them back up and bring them back to Hoopa, you know. So down here at Lake Earl, where H-Gillette Village was, there was a new ranch there by then, the McLaughlin Ranch. And so they said they would open the barn door in the morning, and they'd be full of Indians, and they go, yeah, we thought we got rid of all those people, you know, and then they came back from Hoopa, and they were back home again, right? They wanted to come home, you know. Anyway.
Skipped over all the massacres.
Yeah, well, I did. And, well, I said that we went from 10,000 to 2,000 people, but anyway, so this is just kind of a quick history. And then my point here, too, is that the Tolowa and Hoopa languages continue to be spoken languages. You know, because, again, like Round Valley people are resurrecting the Wailaki language. It was not being spoken for probably a generation and a half, or maybe 2 generations. And at Siletz, it died. The last speaker there, her name was Ida Bensel. She was 103, I think. She died about 1970-something. She was the last speaker, you know, that actually spoke the language. But now they're resurrecting their language as well, and they're using our language because it's the same one. And the Tututni and Wailaki language are undergoing restoration. So I put this map in here for you to see kind of like what it looks like today. So here's the California-Oregon line. Here you got Siletz, Grand Ronde. Our people were taken to those reservations. And then down here you got Round Valley, our Hoopa Valley, and then you got Round Valley right here. So all these Dene people were kind of taken to Hoopa, and all these Dene people were taken to Siletz and Grand Ronde. Anyway, just to kind of see, that's how we're all spread out all over. And the government has helped us believe that we're different. The Chetkos and Talos are different, and the Tututnis are different and all that because they want us to fight. But I'm just here to say that's not necessarily true. Anyway, you know, if we don't allow ourselves to believe that, then we'll be okay. Conclusion, language obsolescence. Dene population, culture, language, colonial and military losses, which we discussed already. Forced assimilation. We all know the boarding school stories, you know. People were taken away by force, not by choice. You know, that first generations, they came and just took your kid without your permission. You know, later, back like by the time the 50s rolled around and the 60s, it was an option and the parents could send their kids down there. But originally, they took them by force, you know. Some Dene language were driven to alien lands for resettlement, like Siletz, or down to Round Valley, because that belonged to the Yuki, not to them. And then, of course, we still to this day have an English-only policy in this country. If you have a charter school in California, you're required that all their work is done in English. Not even Spanish, not even anything else. It's like, it's got to be in English. So though that survives to this day. Language survival, perhaps Dene at Hoopa Valley and Tolowa remain spoken because they remained in their homeland. Why did Hoopa remain living? Well, because it's still in its actual home. Why was it still spoken at Smith River? Because it was still in its original home. Maybe that's why. I'm just guessing. Language continues to be a support of the environment that they emerged from Genesis. Okay, my ideas. Conceivably, the language undergoing restoration did not benefit from the natural home of their language, and their speech communities were faced with competing non-Dene reservation populations. So all of a sudden, you've got this place filled up with Penutian speakers, probably Hokan speakers, all the ones we had listed up here, Silishan speakers. They didn't even speak each other's languages, and all of a sudden, they were like forced to live together. That must have been chaos. It had to be chaos. So we got language realization at Wailaki and Siletz, indigenous language archives, and so forth. And then teaching and learning a heritage language. We have to have a writing system. That's where we're going to go next. We have to have data recovery. We have to have support and development of the speech community, and that's what you guys all are today. linguistic curriculum and new nouns. We need to create new nouns all the time. And we need to credential people with knowledge to be good teachers for our language. And then Dene for today, the work, staying in the language. How do I talk Indian if I don't know how to say something, right? So I got to, that's why that. And then also cross Dene from other Dene languages, innovations. And I'll talk about those here shortly. All right. And my little bibliography in the back. Okay, so how you guys doing? I'm out of breath. Huh? Oh, well, good. And it's making sense to you, right?
Yeah.
Okay, good. Yeah, good.
What was the number that the California legislature put aside?
1.6 million. By the time Burnett and then McDougall, the second governor, finished his work, it was 1.6 million. Yes. Not that I know of, because I don't think Kehat even had any coloring stuff, did she? I'm sorry.
That's how much that would be.
Oh, so what is that?
45,760,000.
In today's dollars.
Today's money.
Ooh, gosh. So could you imagine if the state appropriated 45 million
760,000.
700
Yeah.
and then three more?
Yeah.
Say they appropriate $45 million to cause the extinction of the sea lion, what do you think would happen? Poof, it would be gone, right? But that's in today's dollars. That's worth $45 million by this state of California paid to have us offed. Yeah, well, I did. That's what this whole thing was about.
Second largest single
Yeah, yeah. Well, we can do that.
Well,
Okay.
just the study to repair Last Chance,
Yeah,
just the study is $50 million.
just the wow,
Just the study.
wow. So Linda wants me to share a little bit about Yontaket. So when this happened, when they released the 1.6 million to exterminate the California Indians, all these people got together and formed squads. Okay, it could be 12, 10 guys, 15 guys. Maybe they could move on horses. They had rifles and ammunition, and they'd go out to all these villages and they would set them on fire. They would rape the women. They would kill them, kill the men, burn the children. All Winchuck River was burned that way. So was Chetco Village. All of them. So they decided to set up Crescent City. So they they burnt down Totten Village, and then they set up Crescent City in 1850. Started in 1853, and that was in the spring. And then in the fall, all the Dene people were getting together at Yontaket for the 10-day ceremony. And they saw all these canoes coming to Yontaket, because that's the center of our world. And just boats and boats of people were coming. So that's when they decided to attack Yontaket during the Naidar ceremony. And so Yontaket massacre, Yontaket massacre, about 450 people died. Yeah. Died there. And it was in December of 1853. So when this was being researched by this grad student named Ben Madley, we all know North American history. This country was filled up with 120 million people, and by 1900 there's only 500,000 people left, right, of our race, okay? So we know that people died all over the place in large numbers. And so when Ben Madley got done with his research, he said, you guys are number 2. And we were going, wait, what do you mean? And he goes, the largest massacre, largest single mass killing in one night of people was the Menashet Pequot. Was it P-Q-U? Yeah. What is it? Yeah, MASH. Pequot, they called it a war. All of it was a massacre. I think it was 700 people, or was it 800? So that's the largest single mass killing of Indians in American history. And guess what? Yontaket is the second largest single mass killing of human beings in North America in history. Right here at the mouth of the Smith River. 450 people plus died that night. Funded by the state of California and the federal government both. Yeah. So that was how we just started plummeting from being 10,000 people down to 2,000 people. And by 1916, the Tolowas lived in Delaware County and some in Curry County. We were down to about 116 because the survivors that lived were sent where? To Hoopa and to Siletz. You know what I'm saying? So there were larger populations at Hoopa and Siletz, but right here in our homeland that got to hang out here, somehow hung on, there was about 116. We got pretty close to extinction in the homeland. So she wanted me to share that with you. Okay, so why language? What happened with language? So let's kind of get onto that because we have a half an hour. My goodness. All right, so for today. So back in the 50s, there was a kind of a renaissance that was going on a little bit with the Del Norte Indian Welfare Association. And if you don't know what DNIWA was formed, so the Del Norte Indian Welfare Association formed in 1929. Del Norte Indian Welfare Association, and they got together. Our people. It wasn't they. It was us. But I wasn't born then, of course. But they got together and they wanted to form an organization to help each other. And so they formed this organization. And if somebody's house burnt down, they got together and raised money and got them a place to live and bought them clothes and got them food or whatever. When I was a kid, there was a cousin that was dying of cancer and he needed to be transported to San Francisco, so on. They'd raise money and send him to the doctor appointments in San Francisco, you know, and so on. So it was just like, and then when I was a kid, they had at Gushu Hall, they had Christmas there, and then we all went to the river and had 4th of July, big old picnic and all this kind of stuff, and it was a big thing. But people behind me, above me, our generation, noticed how we, the kids, were not learning our language, we weren't speaking our language. So mom and dad's generation and grandma and grandpa and all them, they all spoke Indian. But all of a sudden there was a gap happening with us. So that's why they decided that they wanted to stop the extinction of our language, and that's how it started. So in the 1950s, there was a little bit of a push by the Tolowa community to try to start using our language more. And termination came, right, unfortunately, right, in 1960 and finalized in 67, so that didn't help anything. But anyway, I remember my Daisri Uncle Ernie saying that because they all spoke the language fluently, you know, and you're just trying to write something in English, and I'm horrible now because oh, I forgot the first part. So this is my attempt at me'trshtatki, okay, and it's the word for ashtray. So he said, because they spoke the language, they could say, oh, you're saying me'trshtatki. But those of us who didn't speak the language, we're going me'chlaklache dutetiki. See? So there was a problem, there was a disjunct between the speakers who knew the language and writing a word, and then how we were reading it as the generation coming behind. So this became a real problem, was the lack of sounds needed, because we have sounds that we use in our language that don't exist in English, right? So it kind of bumbled along. This is in the late 50s that we're at here, okay? Well, and then the story kind of goes then, so welfare associations concerned about this. And they're, at that point, really lobbying with the elders. Let's start dancing again. They go, oh, no, that dance was put away with. We turned our back on that. You know, we're modern people. We're all Christians now, you know, whatever. We don't believe that way no more, and all that. Well, all these people had regalia still. You know, Edward Lena had Daisri Edward Lena. You know, Alec Billy's family and different families had little pieces of regalia and so forth, you know. And finally, they convinced them, let's start dancing. So they started to bring the dance out of the closet, and they started teaching it. You know, we got to hear them singing and say the prayers and all that kind of stuff. And then, like, one of the main woman teachers was Daisri Lena Lopez. She was very strict. She made you move just right. You had to turn just right. You know, the girls, she'd make sure they did it right, you know, and all this. Anyway, so this all was coming from that period. So anyway, what happens in 1969 or so, there was an article about the Hoopa language being written, the Hoopa language being documented at Humboldt State, through a man named Tom Parsons. So anyway, so that's how we met Tom Parsons. Tom Parsons was the director for the Center for Community Development. And his job was to listen to the needs of the community and go, oh, you guys need to work on this or need to do that or whatever. And his job was to help you try to find a way to get that done. Center for Community Development. Center for Community Development. Yeah, CCD, Center for Community Development. No, that was later. Lois added the I in it later. And so anyway, so he's going to Hoopa, and he found this old alphabet. It's called Unifon, okay? And what Unifon was back, I think in the 40s or so, computers weren't even thought of at this time. So they tried to get weather information from across the earth because they had a hard time because people were getting killed and getting hurt by weather. Planes were going down or whatever problem. So there was this alphabet invented called Unifon. And so what these guys wanted to do was they wanted to be able to have a writing system that had a single sound correlation with the shape of the letter. Oh, sorry. So that's where it got its name. Unifon. Uni meaning one, fon meaning sound. One sound. Okay? So what happened was they were going to try to put, African languages, Asian languages, European languages, they were going to put it in this alphabet and then translate it back out into one common language and then figure out the weather patterns for the day from across the earth. So that's how we got Unifon. So my mom went running down to Arcata, meets with Tom Parsons, calls him, makes an appointment, and he says, well, I'm writing with Unifon. And we're going, what the heck's Unifon? Well, what we liked about it was, remember the problem I showed you here with, Sturstetsky? Oh, okay, so you're saying that if you write, this sound, it's always going to be ch, right? And if you always write, this sound, it's always going to be ch, and so on. And so that's how we started following this alphabet. And we started writing with it. And I remember being a little young kid at Delnert High, got drug over there from 7th grade from Redwood School. And I remember the first time I saw our language written on the board, in this alphabet. And so we just absorbed it. We just started writing with it. And we had to add two sounds. We had to add the ch, because it wasn't there. And then they invented this sound, because that wasn't there either. So these are two very, very much Tolowa sounds. Right? And so we went to Gangbusters. We met with Dykstra, like Amelia Brown, Sam Lopez, Ellen Norris, the Moorhead brothers, various elders, Ellen LaFountain, all these different elders, and we just started writing down language. And it would be like, okay, let's talk about, the first sheet that was ever presented was something like man, woman, boy, girl, 1 through 10. The first sheet that we ever had anything written about our language. And we're all just young people, and we're just listening and learning, right? And so forth. And so we use that alphabet. Let me see. So did I give, where's my history thing at? Nope. Oh, I just want to do that. Oh, it must be in the handout. So if you go to alphabet on page 1, just the syllabus. So the alphabet. So from 1968 till 1993, we used Unifon. That was our alphabet. But something had happened. So, and we, guess what? It was very productive. We got to write down ancestors' names, village names, tools and verbs and so forth. We wrote a lot of data down. And these guys that we're working with were L1 speakers. And what does an L1 speaker means? They're L1, their first language was Tolowa. They had to learn English as they grew up, right? So they were L1 speakers, right? And so we weren't really hung up on spelling everything exactly correct because they were, fluent speakers, and it was close enough, and so forth. And we didn't know anything about doing like a phonemic study, which means how many sounds actually exist in the language. We just saw this alphabet and started using it. And there was way too many sounds in it, so we started cutting them out, throwing them out as we didn't need them. And we ended up with a Tolowa version of the Unifon alphabet, the Yurok version, the Kuduk version, and the Hoopa version. They were all a little different because we had different sound needs and so on. So we just started writing data and so forth, and then they invented the got the teacher credentialing program passed by the state of California, and Bernice became one of the teachers. Viola Richards became one of the credentialed people. And who else? I think, is that the two for Tolowa? And they did them for Yurok, they did for Hoopa, and they did them for Cuttack as well. And then they could go in the public school and teach, and so on. So that was all going gangbusters. Well, then something was invented. What is it? Daiwa Ushi computer? Mattatsan. It's called Mattatsan was invented. And no one ever seen one. No one ever knew of one. What the heck is that, you know? And I thank God, the good old IBM. And then their competitor became Apple, or was called Apple, right? You know, these guys hated each other, and so on. But anyway, so of course the computer is based in English. It was not based in Unifon. And the only people on the whole earth using Unifon were the Tolowa, Cuttack, Yurok, and Hoopa. That was it. You know. So I'm sent off to school, and so forth. Others were sent off to school. And then I was finally going to come back and be the language teacher, and I was hanging with it just fine. I worked with Bernice Humphrey for 25 years. And was teaching it at Delnert High and so forth. And then Bernice taught at Smith River School and so on. But then as this computer age came in, we couldn't, do you remember what they call this thing called a daisy wheel printer? It was round and it had all the letters on it, and then it spun as it typed, and then it printed out on long paper like this that you could tear apart. You had to manually tear apart in those days and all that stuff. Well, it was all, again, with these symbols. There was no circle H, there was no backwards C, there was no J, there was no, all these sounds you see on here. There was no cross I, number 44, number 18, number 33, number 29. None of those letters were available to us. And so we were, of course, doing everything by hand, like writing with a pencil, writing with pen, and then we had believe it or not, but they didn't have a Xerox machine yet. We used to have carbon paper. You would set it top, and then you would write on it, and you put it on this machine. You go and you make copies out of it, and then all of a sudden we had this thing called a printer. And then, so how are we going to print our language? It was impossible because there was no way to do it. So the Yuroks, they finally bail. Hoopa bails. Cuttack bails and said, we got, we can, because the society is moving to a new day. So we hung on. We were the most stubborn ones. We didn't want to give it up because this is what we knew since 1968 until then, is this was our alphabet and this is what our language is written in, right? And so finally, so Bernice and I, there's a couple of us sitting on the language committee, and she goes, well, because she was born in 1910, and she says, well, we'll just use Unifon until I'm gone, she says, and then after I pass away, then I guess you guys can do what you need to do, because she'll be out of the picture, And so she finally left us at 83, I guess it was, and she's about 83 years old, and so by that time we'd already been working around trying to figure out what alphabet to go with, and so we went with the Roman alphabet, and so we have a couple of versions of it. So the first one was, we started translating it over. So 1993, we came up to 1997, we came with what's called a practical alphabet. Well, I'd gone to school, and I'd heard that the Navajos use a thing called a nasal hook. So if you have this U, that's U, and they'd hook it, that's called see? And I was going, oh, we could borrow that from Navajo, right? And then I found out that this one, the equivalent of it was this in linguistics. They call it the barred L. It's like this. Okay, but how the heck do you make that on a keyboard? It's like, it's not there, and so on. Now this, of course, was no problem. How are you going to make that? Oh, but that sound really is ch. And this one's got to be duh, that got to be eh. So there's, I think all in all there was something like about 9 or 10 of the letters that we couldn't represent. Like look at number 5, this sound. That's said I, but it's just I now. So then we had to do this whole thing of like, well, what are these sounds and what do they look like in the Roman alphabet? And that's how we slowly made the transition, and then from our Unifon selves to our current selves. And then now you could pick up, because see, back here when IBM and Apple hated each other, they wouldn't write any programs that would work with each other, right? So they wouldn't interface at all because they were competing companies. So that was a war going on in the computer world. And then these became known as Mac later, right? And these, and PC. So this is PC and Mac. Anyway, so we just trotted along and finally, came up with that little red book called Now We're Talking Talo. That was our first draft of shifting over from Unifon. And then this here was our next draft. The final stage is this one. And so now what we've done is taken all the data from the Green Book, all the data from the Gray Book and the Green Book, and put it in our database. And it's all written, in this style here, and so on. And so we have a series in our language called, so there's this sound. So that this is ch, this is ch. So that looks like this in our language today. So ch. And then something else happened in between all this. I got a chance to go away and go to graduate school. And do you guys have these books at home? Okay. All right. And Joe, I see you brought one. They're $5 at the tribal office. I mean, you want just to look at for today. You can give it back when you're done, just to follow.
Can we bring it next time?
Yeah. So you can kind of go along. So this was our big struggle, and it was emotional. I mean, I admit it was. I probably teared up over it more than once going through the process, because it was like, leaving a baby behind. I mean, 1968, and that's when all the L1 speakers were still alive. Now we're 1993, and they're all gone. They all became ancestors, And then we just started translating it over. Now our language base is at about 18,500 words, and it's available to any of you, any of us, and and so forth. And so we had our first book was finished finally. The Gray Book, I'll call it the Gray Book. And that was in, 1982 or something like that? 1982 or 3. Didn't I put it on here? I thought I put it on. I think it was 82. Yeah. And then what I did then, I was home from college then. So Bernice and Betty and I met. And so what I did, I took the Gray Book, because it was incomplete. It wasn't, the whole language. Can't be. So I got a dictionary, and I just started flipping it through an English dictionary. And any word that was in English that we didn't have in there, I would just start writing it down. So that's how we came up with the Green Book. So then we made the Gray Book, and then we made the Green Book. So I'll call the green or the red.
Green or maroon?
Yeah, green or maroon. And that was in, 86, I think. 86, I think. So that's where we were. I mean, that was all in Unifon. And so since then we've had the Now You're Talking Tolowa, Now You're Talking Tolowa, and then we have that one, the one I just gave you. Yeah, so and then we got Tolowa Dee-ni Tolowa. So that's where we go. And it actually worked out good in the sense that now you can pick this puppy up and you can text in the language. Because we're using Unifon still. We would not be able to use any of the media in the world today. Yes?
There's pictures of those rocks. It's the same rock down there.
Yep, down at the beach. Yeah, you recognize it, huh? Cool, that's right. So that's kind of a short, little truncated history of how we went from Unifon, which we loved, followed with passion, got a lot of data, and then now we've had to translate it. It's all done now. Because what
Mention also how you guys put together the app on the phone.
Yeah. So that came, so then we have the language app, which unfortunately we haven't been able to update because, well, no, we did get to update it, right, Joe? I think the council, but I mean, the council approved the update cost. I think it was $5,000 or something like that to updated. And so, yeah. For the app. Right. And well, we wanted to go, what's the other one? It's called Android. But how much was that cost? That was $14,000, and there wasn't enough money in the budget this year to cover it. For this year, maybe next year, to make it available for Android users. Because if you don't have a Mac, if you have an Apple Mac product and you only PC, then you can't use it or something. I'm getting mixed up.
Nothing to bring her up. There's actually more older words in the current dictionary than ever before, because we do have people going through old audio content.
Right.
Transcribing old audio from different people, Steve Waterman,
Yeah.
Twitter, or the other people, and then we're constantly uploading new words that find, and that differences.
Yep. So, what he's talking about, do you know what an ethnography is? An ethnography is I forgot to get these out. This is Drucker from 37. That's just history again. An ethnography is when an anthropologist comes to your people and studies you and writes down some things about you and your belief system and how you make baskets and how you do fishing technology, how you got married, how you did a funeral or whatever. That's called ethnology. And then they publish it when they go back to the university to get their PhD or their master's, and they publish it, and it becomes it's a publication. Unfortunately for us, the Tolowa only have one ethnography. And it was done by this man right here, Philip Drucker, in 1937. That's where this map came from. And so all the Indian words that are in that book have been put into the database, for example. And then there's a bunch of unpublished ones. We got Cora Dubois. She studied with some Indians here. And we've taken all her language and dumped it in there. All of Thomas Talbot Waterman, T.T. Waterman, we took all his language and dumped it in the language base. So anything that I can get my hands on that is our language, I dump it into the language base. That's how we're at 18,000 words now at this point. And then also we have recordings of like Diashri Amelia Brown, Sam Lopez, his wife, also like Global Richards, Willie Bob, Bernice Humphrey. And now we're dumping all that in the database as well. So just the reason this is on here, because Kyle at work, he gets to work with this database and me and the staff, and we don't have a good word for smile. Like, I'd ask that people I knew, how do you say he's smiling or I'm smiling? And they would always say the same thing, Shri Khan. So that's an example. Yeah, so Shri Khan, that means you're happy. So I'm happy. So usually you smile and you're happy. Here, lo and behold, 1964 is it? Or 67? 1962, there's a man named Harrington Pierce is working with Bernice. Bernice's mother, Amelia Brown. And she's talking to her, and she goes, what was the question? How do you say I'm happy or I'm smiling? And she talks Indian fast, so you got to listen to it over and over and over. And so she said something like yesterday, so Shri Khan, Shri Khan make what's this? Shri Khan make what's this? So that means now I'm smiling, she said. So then we know this part means to be happy. So then we can cut this part off and go make. And then he asked her again on a different day. I smiled. She said me what's us? And then to smile is me yuts us, and me he yuts us is they are smiling. This is the pearl marker right here. That means they he. And so on. And so what I do then is I take that data and then I can fill in the paradigm if I need to, backfill. So we can do that on Amelia, Goebel, Willie Bob, and so forth. So we're dumping all that. That's why I spend about 3 hours a day doing, maybe 2 hours a day doing at the tribal office like constantly, because I really want this to be available for you all, for her, anybody to know to have access to our language and know it and so forth and learn it. Shigatrum nite? Huh? Are you going to help me? So anyway, so that's kind of the story of Unifon. So with that chart you have that I gave you is the correlation of what they mean. So like there's O, and Unifon is O, and it's so it's written O, but it's pronounced like for seaweed. What is seaweed? So in Unifon, seaweed is lot. And the current one is lot, okay? so on. So yes used to be I. Now it looks like this. I. It's the same word. Anyway, it's taken, and then in 1995, we did a phonemic study at University of Oregon. And what a phonemic study means is, and I should have brought you a chart. In our oral tract, we have our nose, our mouth, and our throat. And every part of that is called the point of articulation. So if I say, you see where my tongue and teeth are? If I say, so they say, all those places are your POA, point of articulation. And so there's a chart of them. And the human oral speech tract produces a set number of sounds. Okay? And so what they do is they take that chart and they study your language. And they go, okay, let's go through all this inventory. And then they determine exactly how many sounds you have, exactly how many, and the sounds are called phonemes, like pho means sound, so phonemes, like lexeme, a word. And so we did that study, and that helped us hone it down to exactly what sounds we had, because we realized that we had some duplicates in Unifon, like, for example, in Unifon, we have this sound, A, we also have this sound, A, and we use both of them. And we didn't need to have both of them. Like, I can't, what was the Unifon word for A? Maybe like A, push. And I could still say A, push. So these sounds were duplicates. So we didn't, but we found out in current orthography it's just A. So we actually got to actually find the true number of sounds that exist in our language and so forth. So that was done in 1995, got that done. And so forth. So that's how we got from Unifon to our current, the Tolowa Dee-ni alphabet.
But really, you went to graduate school to have linguists help you find a better writing system.
Yeah.
And when you got there, with your family, with your life and everything, they said, well, use whatever you want.
Yeah.
They didn't give you any answers.
Right, so we had to discover them. So if you look on page 20 and 21 in the book, there you can see our current alphabet and what it looks like. So on the left-hand side are vowels. So what are vowels? And then on the left side are consonants, okay? So vowels and consonants. So we have 5 vowels in our language, okay? And so if you took a diagram like this, like you're going to play tic-tac-toe. So this is the high sounds. These are the low sounds. And this is the central sounds of our vowels. Okay? And what that means is on the point of articulation where they're produced in your mouth. So E, oo. So this is a high sound. E, back here. Ooh, out here. And then the central sound is cup, luck, that's not a V, that's And then we got and ah. So ah. So, and these are back sounds too. So this is ah, e, oo, a, and eh. So this is E, U, A. Do I have it? Oh, do I have it backwards? Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, yeah. Okay. So we have 5 vowels in our language. And the thing that's sweet about our writing system now is that wherever you see this is pronounced E. Wherever it's pronounced is pronounced U. It's like Spanish. If it's it's Okay, so if I wrote this, what would this sound like? If this is the E sound, what is that? P, right? If I wrote, what would this be? So this is so that would be?
So if it's doubled up, the sound just elongated?
Long sound, exactly. That's all it is. Yep, right? So what would that word be? This is the sound, so what? Se, and that means stone or rock, right? Se. Yeah. So that's how we evolved through Uniphon into the present. And like I say, it was very emotional at times in the past. And I did have, some of my cousins and stuff come and, yell me out and stuff about it. And I was going, well, I don't know what to tell you because I can't. we're kind of restricted to this board right here. And I didn't like this choice at the beginning because in English, that to us is what? V, right? But on a dollar, I don't think you can have a dollar. I gave it to my niece. She needed to ride back to town. Is it on here? Where's e pluribus unum at? Oh, that's on the Washington. That's at the Supreme Court, isn't it? So e pluribus unum. But in Latin, before English, this was the sound. E pluribus unum. See? And so I go, oh. So it does have a history of the sound, but in modern English, this is a v. So if I wrote this word for you guys, you would try to pronounce it what? Vut, like vut, vut, right? Because that's what our English understanding of that sound is, right? But it's just put. That's all it is, put, right? And if I changed it to this, it would be poot, right? And this would be pet, and then Pete. What's left? Oh. So this is the ah sound. So what's that? Pot, exactly. And we don't have an O in our language for some reason. It's just not there. Hoopa has one, but we don't. So when we say salmon, what do we say? We say hluk, right? Hluk. And then Hoopa, they would pronounce it hluk because they have an O, but we don't. So, and then because we have long vowels and short vowels in our language, that's why, like you nailed it on the point. So that's e, u, ah. That's what that means because we have a long vowel system in our language. And then we have three features that we add to these sounds. Okay, so if this is just regular E, but if I'm going to say to eat, that's glottalized. It would say ooh, like ooh, your teeth. And then this is like se, and then ah. Okay, so now we go ah, e, ooh. And then we have one more feature that we put on our letters, which is nasalization. So we have e, oo, ah, and we don't have an it doesn't exist. We don't have a either. So these are called features. So we still have five vowels, except then they're long, they're glottalized or shortened, or they're nasalized. So when I was typing this darn thing on the keyboard, so I wanted the U to be like this, to be like that, and the E to be like that, and the I could not superscript that thing easily, like a keystroke. Like if I went, it would do that. So out of complete exasperation and frustration, we just came up with, let's just make it follow it then. And that's how we ended up with this. That's our little story. That's how we ended up with that. So like you have the word like the flicker, that bird, Trunk. This would be truk, and this is trunk. That bird, that really pretty bird. It's a woodpecker type bird, so forth. Sinscha, so sinscha, the ocean. Sinscha. Ton yash, she's going. That you are going. Ton yash. Ton yash. See, so that's what that tilde is. Okay. So that's how we that's how we arrived where we are. And then if you look at the consonants, what do we have over here? We've got, so we've got 30 consonants. Excuse me, 30? Yeah. And so you'll see the first column says just consonants, and then the second column says ejectives, and then the third column says glottalized, okay? So to glottalize means to shorten the sound on the consonants, you know, and then the apostrophe after a sound makes it ejective. So what does an ejective do? What does it mean to eject something? Huh? Eject? Yeah, push, right? If I eject you out of my classroom, what did I do to you? I threw you out, right? So if I have ta, but if I do this, it becomes, okay? If I have ka, right? And I do this, it goes k. If I have this, it's or excuse me, and then this becomes, because see, it's shooting it out of your mouth. You're ejecting it out of your mouth. And there's how many of those? So we got okay. And then we've got two glottalized. So we got an M, which is and then we have a glottalized version, which is and then we have an and So if I say the word mun, it means for that, like for the house or for the car, for something, mun. That's mun. But if I do this, mun, now that's a house. And then if I take, I don't know if I have a minimal paraphrase, but like, so the word for coyote. Without that, that would be scum. But with it, it's scum, scum. So you got a k here and a here, so scum. So these are called features of the language. These are the actual letters, and then these other things are called features added to the sound. So you got letters and features, both on the consonants and on the vowels. And so the basic definition for a consonant is what? Like I said, we have an oral tract here that produces sounds, right? So anything that comes out of the tract with the throat open is a vowel. So let's try a couple. Ah, ooh, e, eh. See how the throat's open? The definition for a consonant, it closes in your throat. So either in your throat or mouth or nose. So let's try just a couple of them. So you got like, see how the air is cut off? I mean, it's coming out, but it's cut off. You got ch, 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 ch. Feel in there. Ch. There's a whole bunch of closure going on, right? Let's go down here to X28. You know, a lot of closure going on there, right? And then like yeah, yeah, yeah for the next one down, 29. Yeah, yeah. See? So anything that's blocking air from coming out of your lungs, out of your face, is a consonant. Okay? All right? And so the last one, which is the glottal stop, is the most cutting off one of all. Because if you say la, right? So la, but I do this la, la, la. And there's only a few English words that have it like the English, the New York version of bottle is, we say bottle here. They used to say bottle, bottle. You feel your gut right here? Bottle, bottle, you see? And we don't use them in English that much at all. Very few do we use a glottal anywhere. Like, oh, uh-oh, uh-oh. You feel your stomach right here? Uh-oh. It's not uh-oh, it's uh-oh. That's a glottal stop, and that's complete closure of the speech tract. It's slapping completely shut. Uh-oh. So that's the most consonant of them all is the glottal stop, okay, you know, for the definition. So that's kind of the difference between your vowels and your consonants. And so this is our phonemic inventory. This is our sound inventory for this language. And I wanted to end, oh, is it past 5 already? God. Okay, I want to end on a little point here. There's a huge difference between studying the grammar of our language and speaking our language. I want you to be cognizant of that, because what I'm showing you are I'm talking to you today about the skeletal supports of our language. It's called grammar. And it's all of the rules. It's the sound rules, and it's going to later on be the grammar rules. And I hope to get through the next 2 days, right? Share that with you. And so grammar is talking about our language. how it sounds, how it operates, and how it acts, okay? All right, but speaking it is called production, and they are very, very different. Now, grammar helps me take a word over here like, what's us, a smile, and figure out how to say, you smile, he smile, they smile, we all smile. That's called grammar. But to say the word, just what's us, a smile, is speaking it. So be cognizant of what I'm sharing with you is that grammar are the rules, it's the structure, it's the bones of the language, and no one invented the grammar. What invented the grammar? The language itself. No one sits down in a dark room in a corner and goes, I think Tolowa was going to do this, this, and this. It's exactly the opposite. You study the language and you find out what its operational rules are, because every language has rules. It's automatic. If I said to you, oh, he runned fast, does that sound good? I seed him too. You know, right? You say, see, that's grammar. That's grammar at work. Your laugh is perfect because that's grammar at work. See, every language has grammar, and no one invented it. The language itself creates it. And so all the grammar is studying what the language rules are. And that's what grammar's about. Okay? And it helps us. It helps us know things about our language. Just like me getting all excited about shoot here, where it's gone now, but shoot in Silet's meaning, you know, crick, and then shahut khat is, oh, there it is. It means crick. That's all it means. See, that's grammar. But then it's mixes between speaking of it too. So just be aware that grammar and speaking are two different things. And you'll go through your fear stage if you haven't spoken much language. You're going, I can't say that. Well, when that baby right there, she just now learned to say stuff, right? But she's a year and a half old, so she's heard language now for I don't know how many thousands of hours, but she's just now producing it. And she's going to produce it probably wrong, right? I mean, you know what I mean? Not, but give her 6 months after she knew, and it's going to get correct, right? So I want you to feel the same comfort zone. You're learning. Every language requires a certain type of muscle strength, you know, to produce something sweet. Well, if you're speaking English, the best you can probably do is klakan. I'm just making the sound up. I'm just saying. But you will learn, your muscles will change, your way you use your air will change eventually, and you'll be able to say those words with be 100% correct. But don't expect it on the first day. You know, don't set that kind of a goal up for yourself. Be forgiving, relax, enjoy yourself, explore, and open the new lenses to your ears and your speech and your world. So big difference between grammar, which I'm teaching you, and language, speaking the language. So, ชุดนั้นได้ต่อไอ้ชิกาตรุมนี่ฮะชิกาตรุมนี่ฮะอ๋อชุดชานี่ล่ะฉันเคยนัสมิดนุ่มอัชมิดนุ่มทิ้งเคยขัดมิดนุ่มทิ้ง She knows the word la means stop it. She goes, well, how does she say it? Huh? She's close. She's not quite there. She goes, sa? Oh, no, what does she go? She thinks she's in trouble. It's so funny because the word do, it means no. And so we have some friends in Arcata, and you know that song, you go, do-do-do, do-do-do. And she was around K-Hotch, and she was going, do-do-do. And K-Hotch was like looking like, what did I do? And she thought she was saying, no, 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 no. It was so funny. It was hilarious. She thought she was getting yelled at.